Have you ever noticed that when you're stressed, your body often knows before your mind does? For some people, it shows up as fatigue, for others, digestive issues, and for many, it shows up through their skin. You're listening to Solving for Joy. I'm your host, Dr. Chrissy Ott, a multi boarded integrative physician and professional certified life and career coach. This podcast is about joy, what it means, how we find it, and the creative ways people are solving for it in their own lives. I'm so glad you're here. Today, I'm joined by my friend, Dr. Keira Barr, a board-certified dermatologist and trauma-informed physician whose work explores the powerful connection between the nervous system, stress, and skin health. In this conversation, we talk about what our symptoms may be trying to tell us, why healing often starts beneath the surface, and how learning to listen to our bodies can create more ease, well-being, and joy. We'll also explore how Keira thinks about joy in our own life and why feeling safe, connected, and at home in our bodies may be one of the most overlooked foundations for experiencing it. Let's get started. Welcome, Keira.
Thank you. I feel very welcome.
You are so welcome. We've been having a grand and chaotic time getting settled this morning.
Which is exactly why I feel so welcome. I'm like, this feels like home.
This is real. It's so real. I am always interested in the backstory. What brought you into dermatology and what first made you realize that skin was about much more than skin?
I'd like to say that I got into dermatology. I didn't have a derm program at my med school, but it was like that Seinfeld episode where you see all the cereal boxes on the shelf. Like, you don't have to pick one, like, you could do everything. And that's like derm was kind of like that. Like, you could do P's, internal medicine, like cosmetics and pathology. And I was like, that's so cool. I don't have to choose. But fast forward, I'm actually a dermatologist and my own health fell apart. And I realized it brought me back to the essay I wrote to get into derm. And it really is the through line and the golden thread that I think is what actually led me to how I practice now, which is as a kid, I was bullied for these two birthmarks that I was born with on my face. And kids are so smart and also such little
Fuckers.
heads. Fuckers. They're such little assholes. But so they called me coffee stain face. And
Oh.
those little fuckers were actually correct because these are cafe au lait spots. So like they literally are coffee stains. But okay, at the time, I didn't know that. But, I learned at such a young age that, my skin could be such a source of shame and embarrassment and humiliation.
Mm.
And I learned very quickly that if I could hide those spots
Mm.
with a suntan, right, they would fade into the background and I would fit in. I could shape shift myself. Unfortunately, getting a lot of sun exposure as a young person and an adult through my adulthood, I'm a brunette, but my dad's a redhead, so I burn. Lots of sun damage, lots of growing and changing moles. And ultimately, the focus of my career was skin cancer and melanoma. I had to diagnose myself with melanoma.
Mm.
And that was kind of this wake up call that our skin is talking to us all the time in the loudest way. It's the most visible, largest organ, and it's sometimes the most obvious way to get our attention that something beneath the surface needs attention. And it brings me back to the essay that I wrote to get into derm. It was about these birthmarks, but I had that my own experience, but I hadn't, I guess, had enough struggling and suffering yet. But it was this whole idea that people who live with visible skin conditions are being judged and have to deal with their own source of shame and humiliation on a daily basis, right? Sometimes it's thrust upon them, sometimes it's imposed. And I know this is a very long winded explanation, but when I was in college, I was a religious studies major and I studied the Italian Jews in the Holocaust. And so I was always struck by Primo Levi's passage in his book, Survival in Auschwitz, of his own experience of when he was stripped of everything in the camps, his dignity, his belongings, his connection, all of that. And I never mean to liken someone struggling with a visible skin disease as someone who survives the Holocaust, but this concept of he shared about being at the bottom and what that was like when everything's taken away from you. And it made me think about people who live with visible skin conditions when they are ostracized and criticized, or people don't want to be near them because people don't understand that something isn't contagious per se, but right? But they're
Yeah.
scared to connect.
I mean, leprosy.
Leprosy, right? And so people experience their own version of the bottom on a daily basis. And so
Yeah.
because of my own lived experience of being called a coffee stained face, of trying to hide who I was to be acceptable, to seeing how it played out in so many other people's lives, it's always been really important to me that if I could do one thing to help people who are at their version of the bottom rise to the top and experience more ease, more comfort, maybe more joy in their lives and their felt sense of okayness in their skin, then that is what I need to do. That is how I need to practice medicine, which doesn't fit into the conventional box.
Thank you for that beautiful explanation. We will bring the thread of joy back to this, I'm sure, many times through the conversation. But one of the most important things in moving toward joy is to remove obstacles to joy. So this is really, in addressing this particular suffering, I also am responding to how clear it is to you that this is my work. Like this is my offering, this is my gift, this is mine to do, which is so often the work that I'm doing in rooms with coaching clients and coaching groups. I have a sense that I have my work to do, but maybe still circling around exactly what it is without that same level of intense clarity and ownership. And I rejoice whenever anybody I'm with has that level of clarity and ownership and devotion to what is theirs to do in the world. And it usually has something to do with their past. Of
Yeah.
course, we heal ourselves and then we offer the gifts of that healing to the world when things are going well.
Yeah, absolutely. When shit hits the fan.
Mhm.
Right? It's like when your mess becomes your mission. And also, I joke, like I currently live on an island in the Pacific Northwest. I always joke that I feel like I'm on an island, that even though I have this clarity and I know it's so important, it is isolating, it is lonely, and is really hard sometimes to commit to the work that you know that you are meant to do when it isn't acceptable, when it doesn't fit into the box. And
Mhm.
especially in medicine, when we are taught algorithms and we're taught there's a certain way to do things, or we externalize, we outsource our agency and our autonomy to the drugs that we are prescribed, so that when we offer something that doesn't fit into that box, it's really challenging. I appreciate you noticing, naming that. And also, this has been hard and not easy. And despite having clarity, I doubt myself a lot if this is really the right thing, or do I just, wouldn't it be easier just to shove myself back into that box sometimes?
If only the mighty oak could but return to the acorn. It cannot.
Right. Totally. It
Not with these
cannot.
physics that we're dealing with anyway, or metaphysics
Yeah.
in this case. There's part of me that wants to say I'm sorry that it can be isolating and I'm sorry that it can hard, but I actually know that I know better than to be sorry about hard when the hard is still tolerable. And that's why we have community and that's why we have collaborators. And, if we are not adequately entrenched in a community of people who are saying, yes, you go girl, yes, to 7 out of 10 dermatologists, what you say sounds really out there, but in this room, we think you're fucking brilliant and you're leading with what is your truth, and people always have autonomy. Your patients have autonomy. If they feel aligned inside their bodies with what you are giving them, that's their journey.
Absolutely. And in fact, that's part of my mission as well. Is like I've taught this before, but I'm giving an upcoming workshop on therapeutic presence, right? When we talk about agency autonomy and from the lens of trauma, even of what gets taken away, we oftentimes aren't given the time, space, support, or permission to show up in alignment or to be able
Mm.
to express. And so I think it's really important, right? We are wired for connection. We heal in connection. We get wounded in relationship, but we can also heal in relationship. And part of that is how, as clinicians, we show up in the room with before we even say a word, right? Through our body language, through
Whether we are
our
embodied or not.
totally, totally. And I guess the bigger message about what skincare really is, and really, we don't think about the skin from that lens. Being embodied, well, what is the container for that body? It's this skin of ours. Skin isn't just this glorified canvas to put makeup on or a hanger to put our matching denim outfits on, right? But it's that felt sense of what it's like to live inside this skin of mine. And do I feel supported? Do I feel received? Do I feel yeah, grounded and centered in my longing, my purpose, and can I express that in a way that I feel aligned with?
It's so beautiful. Also, I would like to invite you back with maybe a couple of other friends to have a whole conversation about therapeutic presence at some point in the future, because that is just such a yummy topic and so important, so pivotal, honestly, in the therapeutic relationship. But I digress. How did things go with your melanoma, and are you well?
Yes, thank goodness. I think, you know, this is, I think, the inspiration for my naked wallpaper, right? As dermatologists, we had to get people naked on a daily basis to teach them what to look for to save their own lives, right? So the ABCDEF, I don't know, geez, there's so many more, of looking for moles and melanoma. Thank goodness I was getting naked on a monthly basis, checking out my skin. So I was able to catch it very early. I knew what to look for. So wide local excision, great. And it was the beginning of curiosity for me that everything I thought I was doing up until that point was not maybe in my best interest. So it wasn't just, right, what you see on the surface. It's what is the environment in which this body is cultivating or experiencing. So it changed everything about my lifestyle as well, looking at
Yes.
sleep and environment and nourishment and
And also what you put on the skin for absorption.
what you put on the skin in terms of, right, the the products, because we do absorb, but it's also there's so much like, I think about the things that we don't think that influence our skin, like our visual environment. Our eyes are wired directly so closely into our nervous system, and so the things that we see every day and how that either puts us in a state of contraction or expansion, and how that, also influences every other aspect, and ultimately, the nervous system and the skin are so intimately connected that when you see something on social media, you might catch your breath, but your skin itself is a stress response organ. So, right, are the hairs on your arm standing up? Are you beginning to sweat? Like, we think of
Mhm.
those as inconveniences, but those are actually direct messages from your body letting you know that there's been a little charge, there's a little something that may need a little support or attention.
Mhm. Mhm. What is your journey like with mind skin medicine right now? I'm wondering, out of curiosity for myself and for others listening, what might be an example of what somebody brings to you and where you go with it?
A great example is I had a client come with a history of hives, and hives is like big in pharmaceutical industry right now. A few drugs have come down the pike for chronic spontaneous urticaria. This woman came to me because she was breaking out in hives, I don't know, 3, 4 times a day. She was on maximum dose of multiple different antihistamines. And she had been on, like, changing her diet, doing all the lifestyle, all the things like detox protocols, things that she had been told that she should do to help support herself. She had been in talk therapy. And when we started working together, right, it always, we start on the surface, but quickly it's like, tell me a little bit more. How is this, what is the hardest part of this for you? And I think especially with a condition like hives or itching, it's kind of like, what is itching to be known? What is itching to be witnessed? What needs
Mhm.
to be brought to the surface? Right? It's
Mhm.
showing up on the surface. Hives actually, I forget the paper and I really need to find it, but hives has been dubbed like an emotional allergy.
Mm.
Oftentimes, when we can't vocalize, we weren't given the time, space, or permission to actually speak our truth or what was important to us, and we had to silence it. It finds that energy finds another way out, and
Mm.
this was true for this client as we got really curious about her story and her past and how she had to make herself small, not speak up. She was, a woman of color in a very not diverse town. And so in order to be acceptable, um, young years, she had to quiet herself. And so we practiced vocalization. We practiced embodying the shapes that would allow her to feel, emboldened and to be able to speak. And literally, it was like 2 sessions, and she started to notice that her hives decreased, and instead of taking, like, max dose of antihistamines on a daily basis, it was like, every other day as needed. That's kind of an extreme example of someone where it was so clear that this was really a visible expression of the invisible weight of having to suppress needs. It's one of my favorite examples because it really is such a testament to when we give people the time, space, and support that they need.
That's a really cool story. We were talking a little bit before we hit record about that many people don't think of skin and joy in the same sentence. I was having some kind of little internal gratitude session the other day, and I was not even thinking about this podcast coming up, but I just gave a little moment of thanks for my skin, keeping all of my ooey gooey parts nice and neat and inside of me, keeping me waterproof and like it's pretty amazing all that the skin does. But yeah, we often are trying to correct something about our skin, and I speak as a menopausal woman. Like there are so many tempting things in our social media environment. They're like, do this for your skin, and you'll look like this person who just came out of a facial and is also 20 years younger than you.
Oh, don't even get me started. It's in my feed
So
right
I want
now.
you to start it. Go.
Yeah.
Wind her
It
up.
tries yeah, wind me up. Face yoga is something that has been popping up in my feed lately.
I may or may not have paid $29 for something like that last year or a year before.
Listen, I am not anti-face yoga. What I am against is these young ingenue like, listen, I'm in my 50s. So these women who are teaching, like, they're in their 20s and their 30s, they're like, "Do this, do this, do this, so you don't have necklines, you don't have wrinkles." I was like, "Girl, you're not old enough to have wrinkles. Like, you don't have wrinkles." And here I am, the menopausal woman, trying to, like, mirror you as if just doing these things, I'm going to look just like you.
That's so
First of all,
silly.
no. And we're shaming ourselves for the wrinkles and the gift that we have to age. So, number one, like, it's just the languaging
Such
around
a
it.
privilege. Wrinkles are a privilege. I'll say it out loud for the people in the back. Wrinkles are a privilege.
They are. And also, I'm not anti Botox either because of the research on depression, right? If we can
Mm,
paralyze the muscles a little bit, soften them, so you're not beating the crap out of yourself every time you look in the mirror, all for it. Flip side of that, dosing matters because we are wired for connection, our social engagement system, muscles of facial expression. There was a study in 2018 that looked at Botox and interfering with orgasm. Now, ladies, gentlemen, we do not want to be messing with an orgasm. It's hard enough to come by for some people, like, right? So,
I did not
if you are
know
going to get
this.
Botox,
Fascinating.
right? So get the benefit to help improve your mood. Don't get so much that your face becomes immobile so that your partner can read your facial expression. They know that you're in the moment and you both can have the big O. Like, listen, we can leverage modern medicine. I'm not anti. I'm just saying make an informed choice. Make an informed choice. But the face yoga stuff just drives me nuts because there is benefit in facial yoga in general. But I mean, there was one study that showed very marginal benefit, but we're focusing on the wrong feature of face yoga. These are your most powerful tools. This
She's showing
is
her hands.
my hands,
Mhm.
your hands are the most powerful tools. And your skin, right, is directly wired into your nervous system. Your skin itself has its own version of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. It is capable of producing cortisol and adrenaline and inflammatory cytokines, oxytocin, your bonding hormone, vasopressin, you know, the antithesis, this kind of stress hormone, right? So through touch, and touch is the very first sense we ever developed. Touch is the first language that your body understood. We can speak the language that our body understands, right? Gently. When we place our hands, if we do a little bit of stretching or moving, some of these facial yoga movements, it's not to decrease the wrinkles. It's actually to remind your system that it's safe enough to settle, to
Oh,
soften, that you're there with care. That is a very different message. And it's very empowering versus, girl, you're old, decrease your wrinkles, right? Same movement,
so
but
different.
different messaging.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what we're missing.
That reminds me of my very early days as a massage therapist. I was a massage therapist at 18, but 18 until somewhere after I started med school. Touching these people as a service provider was just a really important part of growing into like how to be with people, like how to be co-regulating with people, how to read subtle signs in the body. And I love being directed back to think about kindness toward the self through touch.
Totally. And I think that's, one of the things. There's the beauty industry is like a $500 billion plus industry. And again, I'm not anti products, but the message that we're given is that if there's some pimple or dryness, It's a flaw to be covered up, fixed, camouflaged. And so the invitation is those symptoms are communication from your body that some support is needed, right? If there's dryness, right? We know that cortisol directly impacts the pH levels, the surface microbiome, barrier integrity, increases inflammation, stimulates oil. Like the things that are showing up for a reason. It's not a problem, it's information that you can use to get curious about what's been going on in my life. Am I feeling tired? Is it an opportunity to maybe go to bed 10 minutes earlier, have an extra glass of water, offer myself a gentle touch, or invite somebody else that I care about? Or maybe I don't have anybody else and I go to a skilled massage therapist to have them lay their hands on my body to help it settle because I'm having trouble doing that myself. Again, there's no shame in that. That is beauty, right? We are wired for connection and collaboration and co-regulation. And I think that's one of the things, it's funny that I'm not big on social media, but the people who follow me most actually are estheticians, not physicians or women who are struggling with their skin as much. It's the estheticians who are the first line workers who, whether they want to or not, they're thrust into a position of being like a pseudo therapist,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Because
They're
they may
mediating the relationship between self and skin for so many people.
totally. And they may be the only ones who touch somebody, just like a hairstylist may be the only one or a massage
Mm,
therapist. They may be the only one to make contact with this person. And so you have this incredible responsibility. This is where trauma aware, trauma sensitive, trauma informed training is so important because the skin was our first site of attachment in the womb. Yeah. Again, touch is our first language that we ever learned. And we learned, is it safe? Is this not safe? So, as someone, as a physician, you are touching people all day long during your exams to make sure that you're checking in with yourself, grounding yourself, steadying yourself so that when you do lay your hands on somebody, you're conveying a sense of this is safe touch, right? Always asking for consent, we do that, but it's like also the attention behind the touch. Because if someone's nervous system is like, bracing for impact,
mhm,
it's going to be very difficult for them to follow through with your treatment plan, regardless of how brilliant it is. So I think we underestimate the role that the skin plays in the therapeutic process. It's not just the skin that we're treating about acne, but it's the interface between our internal and external world and between clinician and patient. Yeah.
mm. How do you help people move toward a more grounded, self-trusting position where they can listen to their bodies, especially to their skin in different ways?
It's very experiential. Even though I'm very chatty and not concise here, I try not to teach as much. I try and guide through the experience. So when I work with someone, it really is getting familiar with like, what is it like to be held by the chair beneath you, right? So like, what is it to feel something, to be supported, to have that embodied experience? And we begin very slowly. This idea of like with nervous system work, like we can't just tell ourselves to be calm. We can't tell ourselves to be a different way. We have to show, not tell. So it has to be very experiential. So working with the breath, working with movement, working with touch. But not everyone feels comfortable with that, right? So sometimes we do have to use things in our environment or work with objects and learn how to notice, to name, and get familiar so that we create opportunities for it to be safe enough to then go inside, right? So it's a step by step process, but it is a very experiential process because what we know is that when we are stressed or overwhelmed, right? Dr. Dan Siegel's hand model, we flip our lid. Our
Mhm.
prefrontal cortex goes offline. We've got our, emotional brain is like unsupervised toddler with scissors
Toddler.
running around. And so really how to bring the body back online is we do need to work from what we call a bottom up, right? The vagus nerve, longest cranial nerve we learned about in medical school, innervates heart, lungs, connects with the cranial nerves, and, the muscles of facial expression and social engagement, but it also
Mhm.
in the gut. So like 80% of the vagus nerve are sensory. So it's sensory information that's going up to the brain. The brain then makes meaning of that, tells all the other systems in the body how to function. So we use sensation, we use the language of the body, touch, sound, movement, breath as the way in to create shift and change, helping someone maybe reframe that anxiety, that worry that right? We can experience that without getting overwhelmed by it, drop by drop, right?
That makes sense to me. Do you work with people virtually for the most part these days or purely?
For the most part, except when I do workshops or presentations, we do it virtually. And it's actually quite effective to do it virtually. It's in someone's own safe space. They have their own props. Like we work with pillows, we work with things in their environment. Yeah,
Well, we will definitely link to Dr. Barr's upcoming workshop in the show notes and ways to learn more. I'd love to bring this back to joy a little bit. And in addition to removing the obstacles to joy, tell me about your joy in this. How does this fire up meaning, alignment, and delight for you?
it's hard to explain. Like, I just get so fired up when I read about the science. Like, we know this in our body, right? Like, we know we feel like a surge of energy. I think what lights me up is that the science has caught up and this isn't just woo woo shit.
Yeah.
Like we literally on a cellular level can really quantify and qualify this, that
Mhm.
this is real stuff. And I think that lights me up. Even in the beauty industry, we're shifting language from anti-aging to longevity, although I have issues with that because I do think in many ways it's just anti-aging in a different wrapper. But this idea that they are looking more at the mind skin connection, that we are looking at the experience, that tapping into our senses creates a felt experience in our bodies that helps our systems settle, that will be visibly reflected and expressed on the surface of the skin. So I think it just gets me so excited that people's minds are expanding and we can normalize all the things that we know are true and we don't have to be like so on the fringe, you know?
I'm reflecting on my skin over the years and the things that it's told me. I remember being in undergraduate and having a breakout that I didn't have a pre existing diagnosis of eczema, but I had a scaling, super itchy palmar rash bilaterally, which finally resolved. And I think in retrospect, it was the low fat 90s. My partner at the time and I were like all about the, like fat free everything back in the day.
Totally.
So I probably was like overtly deficient in essential fatty acids. But nobody was going to tell me that. I wasn't probably trying to hear that. I was getting into nutrition. I was not having that thought either.
Right.
But the skin was telling me. I mean, it also was stress related and I just like, all the things. Or this outbreak thing that's been like my little friend on my right shin since I was like 18 or 19 years old. That's a lichen eruption of some kind that I can like squash it with heavy steroids, like, but I don't usually choose to do that. Talking to you makes me really curious about what am I not hearing?
Sometimes I think we can try and make it mean something. And it
Mhm.
doesn't always have to mean
A
so
big
much, right?
something.
A big something, but it is a curiosity of like, this is a persistent spot. So it could be like, okay, when is it really itchy? How am I feeling when it's really itchy? Is there a lot more going on? Are you
Mhm.
feeling overwhelmed? Haven't gotten sleep, right? And when we think of stress, it's not just mental, emotional stress. Not having enough essential fatty acids is a stressor on the body. I mean, if you think about your skin, in and of itself, it's a neuroimmunoendocrine organ, stress response organ, but it's also part of what we call the NICE network. So it's the nervous system, immune, cutaneous, and endocrine system. They're all communicating all the time, right? So when something shows up on the surface, it's data from all the systems that it's in communication with, right? It's not so, it's like, yeah, sleep, we know, is the time when skin has an opportunity to repair and restore and rejuvenate. And so, if we're not getting sleep, that's going to not only impact our mood, but impact the type of food that we might eat in order to give us
That's
more
right.
energy. And
Yes.
right. So, it becomes full circle. So, when we see something on our skin, it's not, I'm stressed. Like, it's an invitation to get really curious. I'm itchy, so I want to address it, not shame myself. I'm going to support myself. And also, if it's persistent, can I take a step back? Is there anything that is itching to be known? If you want to get all philosophical,
A little
right?
metaphorical. I
A
love a
little
good
metaphorical,
metaphorical
right?
intervention.
And what may be itching to be known is I am thirsty. I am tired. I need to have this conversation that I really don't want to have.
All of the above.
I need some moisturizer because my estrogen is like in the toilet. And we know that,
Or you know what? I know which moisturizer I want, but I'm not letting myself buy it because 'cause I'm on a, like, monetary, cleanse right now, like,
there
all
you
the
go.
things. all the things. I'm going out to buy that
All
moisturizer I've been wanting soon. My skin, she deserves it.
she does, and think about the joy of
That's
that.
right.
Right? I mean, I think about the things of like, and bringing it back to joy of like, what is going to create more stress and what is going to create more joy? It's like, especially with everything is about the gut. Everyone's telling you your skin issue is a gut issue. So you eliminate all the foods. There is no joy left. You have three foods
Mhm.
left. But it's like, what is going to support you the most? Eating the or two things that actually give you such joy, such pleasure, or maybe there's a little potential gut upset, but most of the time it's like it's the withholding from ourselves that creates the angst. I'm not saying spend like bust your budget and like get everything like,
No, no,
but
I identify, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And again, if it's not in the budget, and that's okay, there's alternatives. As you apply the moisturizer, right? Offering that gratitude and slowing things down. And this is where massage therapy, right? We really tap in there's these specialized nerve endings in our skin called these CT afferent fibers that respond to slow stroking, just like the
Mhm.
massage strokes. And those sensory nerve endings communicate directly with the emotional regulation centers of the brain, right? So you don't need a fancy cream. It's just taking the time to slow things down and really speak to the skin in the language that
That
it's
it
craving
understands.
and it
Yeah,
understands.
so beautiful. If someone listening today feels disconnected from their skin, from their body, what is the one thing you hope that they remember from this conversation?
That your skin is not your enemy. It is, as you said, it's holding in all our ooey gooey bits. It has been our greatest champion protector our entire lives. So if something is showing up on it, it's an invitation to be curious instead of critical.
Thank you so much, Kira, for sharing your wisdom, your story, and your heart and passion with us today. It's been a gift to learn from you. And friends,
Yes.
I'm so grateful that you spent this time with us. If today's conversation resonated with you, be sure to check out the show notes to learn more about Kira's work and how you can connect with her directly. And if you've been enjoying Solving for Joy, would you consider taking a moment to follow the show, leave a rating, or write a review? Every share, review, and recommendation helps these ideas reach someone new who may need them and allows a little more ripple of joy outward into the world. And if you're feeling curious about your own life, about what your body, your work, your relationships, or inner voice may be trying to tell you, I would love to support you. As a physician coach, I work one-on-one with people who are ready to connect with themselves again about what's next and create lives that feel more aligned, meaningful, and full of delight. If you're a physician coach who's curious about the power of coaching, especially connecting in community, I hope you'll join us at the 2026 Physician Coaching Summit. This year's theme is relating, and we will be gathering November 4th through 7th at Skamania Lodge in the beautiful Columbia River Gorge just outside of Portland. You can learn more about all of those things in the show notes. Thank you, my friends. Take care of yourselves exquisitely and keep solving